just one of the realest to try. My family, SOE, got the tools to survive.
What should we talk about?
What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. I feel like there's, whatever it is, there's going to be a bunch of other stuff. I'm like, man, I wish we'd have talked about that.
Yeah, it's always the stuff when you're not recording is what should have been recorded.
Yeah, always.
Because as soon as this happens, you're like, I don't know what we're talking about.
And you have to turn it on for like 30 minutes for them to forget that it's on, so that they'll just say the real shit. This is Justin Sowders. You have people in your life that make you better. You have people in your life that you know when you throw things at them, they're going to tell you the parts that you don't want to hear. And you have people that you bring to the table to have the same conversation with that are going to interject different parts of the conversation that you won't have without them. And that is Justin is one of those people in my life. I met Justin 10 years ago.
No, we're pushing 13.
At an REI, and he walked up and he's like, "Hey, you're John Willis. How did you even know who I was? How did that even happen?"
I watched Jaeger's YouTube channel.
Yep.
Every night, falling to sleep. It was sitting there on my laptop in the bed for years. And I'd been on the website. I'd seen your stuff. I knew you were around local. And you guys would come into REI usually every Saturday.
Yeah.
Would see you walking by, and I remember I commented on your T-shirt. You were wearing an ITS.
Yeah,
hey,
Brian's shirt.
It's like a nice shirt. And you're like, you know who these guys are? And yeah, we started talking after that. I was like, hey, I'm making some Kydex,
Yes.
some holsters. I happened to have one in the car. I went out and grabbed it and showed it to you. And you immediately gave me your card. I remember you saying, like, do you want to do this? I can make this to where you quit REI tomorrow if you just want to press Kydex.
I think I was very excited. I was very
more excited than I was.
Yeah, and that didn't dawn on me until today when I actually said that. That didn't seat. And that comes, I think, having been in the shop with Strider and watching a company that really grew a big fan base. And then moving here and Jeremy Horton interacting with Jeremy, and Jeremy worked across the street at a fabrication shop for years. But when he first walked in, he's like, "Oh man, I'm Jeremy Horton. I'm a knife maker." And I'm like, "These are really good knives. Like, these are really good knives." Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "We could blow you up, man." Like, and when I say that, I don't want anything for it. I just want to know that he is doing what he wants to do, right? And he's like, and I'm like, "You could do A, B, C, D, E, F, G," and we went all the way to Z. And he's like, "Oh man, I don't know if I want to be a knife maker." And then I go, "Well, then why the fuck did you just walk in here and tell me you're a knife maker?" Mm-hmm. So when somebody tells me that they want to do something, especially when they have the skill, right? It's not just some fucking idea. They actually have the proof in their hands. Mm-hmm. I want to see that happen. I just want to be a part. I don't want anything for it. I just want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't even find out that you're an artist. And people say artist, right? People are like, John Willis is an artist. I don't see myself as an artist. Craftsman, maybe. But like,
what's the difference?
Art is drawing or pencil or, paint or art, right? When you say artist, you think of
fine art.
Yeah, fine art. Okay. So I didn't know that you went to school for art until I saw the painting you painted. I didn't even know that you could paint. And when motherfuckers are like, "Yeah, I'm an artist," I don't know. I'm like an okay sketch, right? I can't even fucking play hangman. Mm-hmm. I never could color within the lines. I guess I could color in the lines, but when I draw something, it doesn't ever look like what I thought it should look like. You're like, 2-year-old drew that.
I remember one time you came to our house, and so the grenade painting that you have.
And I don't go to people's houses.
No. And you've been to 3 of mine. So that was up in the studio on the easel. Amanda knew I was painting that for you. And I didn't realize, one, that you were coming over, you were going to go up there. But I don't think you ever saw it. And Amanda saw it and knew that it was for you and gave me this look of like, oh shit, that's it. Yeah, no, I wanted to paint that for you because for years we had traveled. We'd been to SHOT Show, Blade Show. Here, like, I went to your house for Christmas when my parents were out of town. You're like, you don't have anyone around? You're coming over. and stayed with you that weekend. So it was just I was like, I need to do something to repay you, and for friendship, for not monetary things, but just your time and energy. And yeah, that was something I wanted to do for you.
Dude, it's awesome. It's awesome. I don't even have a way to display it properly. And we have 3 of your paintings. Are you aware of that? 4?
4. Amanda's got 2. You've got 2. Yeah.
I have the with the ships and the
whatever you want to see in.
Yeah, and then she has the straight razor.
Mm-hmm.
That is, you know what? You know where the other one is?
It's in the
over my bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually over my bed. Yeah, so. I didn't know that you went to art school until just through that conversation in the kitchen there.
That was one of the.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
I think my first memory of when you view yourself in the future and what you think you want to do was I wanted to work out of the garage. And in my mental image, it was my parents' garage, the house I grew up in. For some reason, I was still living there. But it was working, building projects, selling stuff out of the garage, but working on building wood things, because that's what my grandfather was, built furniture. Dad's very crafty, can build, repair, fix anything. So that was the first thing that I imagined myself doing. And then it was, it's peppered in with whatever movie I just watched. Like, I want to be Indiana Jones. I want to be MacGyver. I want to be James Bond, whatever. So it was all this.
Did you want to be them, or did you want to be an adventurer?
It was an adventure. Oh, totally. Because I grew up with that. I mean,
like I want to be a tomb robber. And I don't know if it's a tomb. I just want to be able to go places and I don't know, somebody 400 years ago left this here. I don't want to rob museums. I want to go get them from I want to discover the things and bring them back and then have them.
We've had conversations about robbing museums, though.
Not really. Those were just not really.
No, not really.
We would never rob a museum.
No. So it started off with with doing that. I knew I wanted to create things, work with my hands. There were studies done on what makes someone happy through their job, and the common denominator was someone who worked with their hands, someone who saw a task completed from start to finish. So not somebody who's working on one single part of it, but seeing something start to finish, working with their hands, getting to use a little bit of creativity with it.
So not a bureaucrat.
Not my idea of happiness, no.
Yeah, that's what I say. There's 2 kinds of people in the world, in the United States especially. And I think there's more of the bureaucrat than the other one. And the other one is the person who creates something, has a project or has a service, has something, and people seek him out of desire for that thing and have commerce with him. Whereas the bureaucrat is somebody you have to go to, and they will put you at the point of a gun and force you to use that service. For instance, the DMV, right? You go to the DMV. Would you ever go to the DMV and pay taxes every year for something you already own? And I think the answer for everybody is no. You're also an amazing craftsman. Like, every time I'm in your house, I'm like, where did this come from? And you always have a whole entire complete story. And a lot of times you even know the person that made it. And there's a whole historic, there's a heritage to that thing. And there's things, because of you, when I go out in my day-to-day life, I see things on a regular basis that I would never pay attention to. And I think of you when I see them. For instance, any place that I am that there is an old tape measure that folds out, I pay attention to those and I actually buy them. And I remember my grandfather having one of those and playing with one of those as a child. And I would have never thought twice about it until 5-6 years ago, maybe, when we picked you up for Blade Show and we were in the condo there, and you had one of those things, and I was messing with that.
You bought it for me, and we were at the Antique and Garden Show in Nashville.
That's right.
It was, I think you were getting some dentist kit for Sherman.
I bought it. I did. I bought an 1800s dental kit for Sherman. I bought an 1800s ophthalmological surgical kit that I still have. We bought that, and I actually ran into that gentleman at the Atlanta antique show and actually purchased some more things. He had some functioning planetariums that you crank and the planets revolved around and stuff. And then he had barometers. He has an insane asylum, an actual real from an insane asylum alarm. And I went there actually to Atlanta to buy it, and it did not function. And he's like, I will take this and make this work. And I still to this day don't have that motherfucker, but I have visited my alarm several times at his places. And we were there at that first one. That was the first one they had ever done. And we went and saw Kerry, and Kerry that was his first show, or there anyways. And when we walked in, everything was sold. Like, everything was sold. And the old man had a gynecological, like an exam chair from the Civil War and an amputation table. And that was really my first show. And I'm like, oh, I'll probably be able to get one of these. You know, I don't know if I want to spend $4,000 on this. And every fucking show I go to, I'm like, motherfucker, I should have bought that and the human-bound skin books that he had. I should have bought all that shit. But we do. So the rare bookseller, it's so weird, man. Do you know
the edges of the books, how they hold it in a certain angle, and it's got an image that was
okay? So we walk into a big antique store in the Atlanta area, and in the corner are these big ornate wooden walls that look like they're castle doors, and it's 100 by 100 feet, maybe bigger, and the whole corner. So we walk in, and it's all these rare books, and I go, did you ever set up at the Home and Garden show in Nashville? He's like, yes, I did. I go, I've been looking for you literally for the last 6 or 7 years. I'm getting like chills talking about it. And I walk in, and there's a bunch of people in here. Every book in there is older than anybody that I know that's alive, right? So we're looking at these things, and I'm like, can I touch this? And he has this whole spiel. I filmed probably 5-6 hours. I need to find it because we've never put it together. So these ladies are in there like holding it. He's like, look here, you never open a book all the way. You set it here and you fold it. And he gave us this whole history. And he's like, man, if I could find a young person today, I would tell them to learn how to bind books. There's one person out of San Francisco. There's a small group of people. They bind these books. And he starts telling me about these book presses. And a book is actually a collection of small books put together that are bound this way. And then we put them together and we run them with a needle and thread this way. And then we put them in the book press. When he was done, I'm like, I have to buy something from you. I have to. You have stood and given me like 5 hours of you. I have to own something that came from here. And I bought a book press, which is sitting upstairs. It's very heavy. And I bought a very old Bible that Amanda has up there on the table up there. And he told us all about Bibles. Bibles used to be kind of, you bought them, people came door to door. You would order your family Bible if you had money. It might have leather. If it didn't, the first few pages have your family history in them. It's just a trip. Like that just flashed back in my head. And I met that man because you're like, hey, you should come to this show. Let's go to this thing. Just very neat. It's just like I never would have, had you not been like, come to the show, I probably wouldn't even be interested in antiques at all. I didn't go there for antiques.
And we went there for years. I mean, every year
we did. Yeah. And I'm like, someday I'm going to do something that's worthy of being here, you know? And then that chick that Carrie knew that would take old rugs and make like Harlequin mannequins or something out of them, you know? The trapeze stuff. It's just cool. Like stuff that's in that show is real historic artifacts. It's not just something that, you know, somebody's grandma had. It has an actual historic value to it.
Yeah, it's one of those things for, like how you're talking about with my house, like how I like to have lots of things with history, but it's for those people that want a curated life. You don't want to just go to Target or Home Goods or whatever and buy your pieces of furniture, your rug. Everything in there has to have a story. It was crafted, made by someone, an artist. And or you can look at every single thing in your house and be like, I need this doodad device. There's got to be something better out there. And it's usually, if it's something older, it's an antique. They made things better back then.
And things aren't made the way they used to be.
No. And you can get that thing and hold it in your hand and know, like, wow, this has been, like, this patina to it. Like, someone has used this so much they've worn down this wood where their thumb was on this XYZ. And that's far better than anything you can go buy new in a store.
I was saying at one point, I was telling Jeff, things aren't, you know, they're not made like it's not long until you won't have handmade things. And Jeff said there will always be a market for it, though. I mean, he said, you know, look at record players. People are buying record players, and there are stores that are filled with thousands and millions of records, right? Because people seek those out. Even though there's not a market really for them anymore, that market is coming back. And he said, when you're a craftsman, there are people that want the best, and they will always seek you out. And that craftsman will always have more work than he can possibly handle. And that's what drives the value. That's why those handmade crafts things, they have such an elevated value, because you only have so much capacity. We can teach other people to make them, but it won't be the same thing. I mean, you could take, I mean, they say Leonardo, or who painted the Sistine Chapel? Michelangelo. They say that a lot of his paintings weren't even painted by him, or they were labeled, he just signed apprentices, yeah. But it's just not the same now. People know, like, you can't, that doesn't happen. Did you see, did you ever hear the story? There was a famous art dude, right? He was a writer or an art from Art Magazine or something over in the UK. And they basically would co-sign up-and-coming artists, right? They would say, this is the guy. Yeah. So this painting, which would sell for $1,000, $2,000 or whatever, because they said, this is the new up-and-coming guy. When they'd take these paintings to auction, they'd go for millions of dollars. So he's like, okay, I've never painted anything in my life. And he sat in his kitchen and painted something and said, this is the new, and he fabricated this artist and put it in there. And people bought several of these paintings for millions of dollars, and dozens of these paintings sold. And it somehow got busted out. I think it was the wife told eventually or something. Yeah. And he went to prison over this. But I mean, it's perceived value, right? Just because the cool kids said it was cool. And I mean, maybe he was an amazing artist. I don't know. Did you hear this story?
Yeah, it was from you. Yeah. I thought he was a journalist and was doing this for an article to see like how you could break into the art world. So these critics were like,
yes,
oh, this is him. And like, it's just it's the power that the critics had to propel this guy to fame and fortune. I mean, look at Hunter Biden's painting career. Like, he's like,
yeah, but that was money laundering.
Oh,
I mean,
totally.
It was a 4x8 sheet of plywood, wasn't it?
The art world is is money laundering. I mean, that's what you do.
So it really is, yeah.
Oh, when you get to the point of like buying super old pieces or even super expensive pieces, and then you're donating it, you're putting it into a school's gallery, a museum, something like that.
Now it's insured. It's a tax climate controlled. Yeah. It's theft protected. Yeah, rich people buy artwork, and most of your machine guns in the world, I've heard, are owned by rich people who hate guns, because it's a good store of wealth.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything in an art gallery? Have you had a showing or a?
Yeah. In galleries right now, no. I have stuff in like headquarters for watch companies. In businesses that we know. I've done logo work for them. I've sold in galleries. I started doing that. I was still in college and had pieces in galleries, but most everything's at 30 to 50% commission. I mean, the real thing to do in the art world is open your own gallery. And that way you can do your stuff, you can sell it there, you keep 100% of the profit, but also you bring in all these other artists, local artists, traveling artists, whatever. And then you're now taking that percentage for them. That's the
So make money for work you don't have to do.
Exactly. And just own a gallery.
So how did you have paintings hanging in watch headquarters that are really big watch companies, very expensive watch companies. Mm-hmm. How did that happen?
So the first watch I ever did was for Salmon, because I knew he was a watch collector, collected Hublots. So worked with him. He has 3 of my pieces, and then from there it went through social media, but also going to watch shows.
Where I've not even been to a watch show. What does a watch show look like?
So the one, so how I got hooked up with Citizen 2 summers ago was I went to, it's a show called Wind Up Watch Fair. It's basically for independent watchmakers, smaller brands, things like that. And they'll set up, there's San Francisco, Chicago, and New York City. And I went to the Chicago one, was walking through and talking to the guy at the bulova, So at the bulova booth, and because the original bulova astronaut watch that they made that was for the stealth fighter pilots. The CIA bought all these watches, used them for those. The pilots. My dad has one of those, one of the original ones.
Is this like a boys club type of thing, or is there an actual application where they needed this watch? Or was this like, hey, we have an unlimited budget, we want these super cool things that don't exist, build these?
Well, for them it was is the GMT function on it. So the same thing with why Rolex made the GMT Master Watch was for the Pan American pilots, because it was the first time we were getting pilots who were flying nonstop across the ocean, and they needed to be able to track 2 time zones at once, where they're going, where they're coming from.
So
Rolex made that the GMT Master 2 is made for.
So I didn't know that.
Pilots.
I did not know that.
All their watches. I mean, so Rolex, they're design specific, so they're made for a certain thing. Like the Explorer 2 is made for cave diving.
Yes.
For
right
underwater spelunking.
They did something with James Cameron, or they did a watch with James
deep
Cameron.
Sea. Yeah.
So I was at, of all places, we were in Chattanooga, and we went to the Titanic museum. And as we're going through, you get to the bridge of the ship, and it starts thundering and lightning just before the ship sinks. And they've got this cool thing that's like you can put your hands overboard into water, and it's the actual temperature that the water was when the Titanic sank. Mm-hmm. So there's this old dude, big old Santa Claus-looking dude, and he's the captain of the ship, and he gives this whole story. And it's just, I mean, absolutely captivating. There's probably 60 people in there. Kids are sat on the floor. Everybody's paying attention. And he tells this story about the ship going down, and the lights come back on afterwards, and we leave. And I go, what's your deal? He goes, what do you mean? I go, I just feel like there's something more. Like you have this, you were so good at this. You didn't just do this because this is a job. He's like, no, I come here and I volunteer here. He goes, I actually have been down to the Titanic. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like,
it's like 150 people.
He was in, so the 2-man submarine that they took down, he sat on
the mirrors?
Yes, he was in the fucking nose of it on a fucking pallet, laid sideways. There was actually 3 people in the fucking submarine, and he was one of the people. He'd been down to it, I think he said 3 times, wrote a book. I'm like, what's your book? So I bought 120 of them. We just gave them away with orders. I bought 120, and just an amazing story. Just that it's just fucking wild, the people you have access to if you just have a conversation with them. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I just like that. And they have a ton of stuff that was actually in the Titanic that family members has been recovered, or like actual life vests that were on people that were in the water and stuff. And they had all that stuff on display. It's pretty wild. But I didn't know the GMT thing. Like I have Breitling. Breitling's known as aviation, but I don't know the history behind it. I buy watches because they're black and red.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. So
no, remember we were in that jewelry, the Omega boutique in Atlanta.
Yes, I had no intention of ever owning an Omega watch.
No, and you were upstairs with Amanda at some store, and I went straight to Omega, and they had the dark side of the moon. I was like, I can sell you that watch in 5 minutes.
And when we walked in, the dude's like, hey, I've seen some of your videos.
Yeah. Well, no, and what was crazy was the next year when we went back for Blade.
Yeah.
Because I walked in, like, so you bought the watch. They're like, would you like some champagne? Would you like a scotch? I was like, I'll take a scotch. And we chatted and told him my name. The next year we went by, and he was like, hey, Justin, would you like a scotch? I was like, that is customer service right there.
Yes. When I walked
1 year later.
Yeah, and that's the Hublot thing, right? People are like, oh, Hublot. Look, man, I've walked into many stores where there I've walked into many Rolex dealers, and they don't have a fucking clue who I am ever, nor do they care. But when I walked into Hublot, he's like, what can I show you? And I said, I'm never going to own one of these watches. It's not even in the realm. And he said, well, can I show you some? Like, he didn't have to fucking pull watches out. He didn't have to show me anything. And I stood for probably 2 hours, and he told me all about Hublot and told me all about the watches and the differences in them. And I bought a $1,200 carbon fiber pin because he invested time with me, and it stuck in my head literally every day. And I went back 6 weeks later and bought a $36,000 watch when I said I'm never going to own a watch more than $4,000. And it's because of that. And then when we went back, they actually, well, were you there when we went to Colin and I and everybody went
and filmed it? Yeah.
Yeah, and
We
they
were there for a SHOT Show.
and they had all the Pateks out. We had all the Pateks on the counter. We had $2 million worth of watches. And Colin's like, I can't believe they have the doors open. Like, they didn't even lock it down or anything.
Yeah.
It was wild, man. And it's just a different, go to a shitty mall and pull a bunch of watches out and they act like you're going to steal them. But here, it's just a different, there's another levels to this shit. And you don't know what's there until you know what's there. And it's just those conversations with those dudes. So how did you end up? So you met the bulova guys.
Yeah, and so I was chatting with him, like, yeah, my dad has one of these from '68. Been trying to. It's been sitting in the safe like my whole life, because he has a Rolex GMT that he's worn since the early '90s. And so I keep, like, I was giving dad like all kinds of stuff, like clothes and gear and stuff like this, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm trying to pay off this bulova. Like, it's sitting in the safe. Like, I want you to give it to me." He's like, "Well, you're gonna get it. Like, you're your only child. Like, it's gonna be yours." I'm like, "Well, I mean, I'd like to enjoy it now." And he's like, "Well, that's the watch I wear when I send the Rolex off to get service." And I was like, "Dad, I have tons of watches.
I'll
like,
bring it back to you.
I'll give you a much nicer watch to wear while your Rolex is getting serviced." So I was talking with the bulova guy, and then I just was like, "Hey, I paint watches." So I was there for work to meet contacts and stuff. So I had my iPad, had a portfolio pulled up, and I was just showing him like, "Hey, here's some of my watch paintings." And he was like, "Holy shit, you need to meet this person." And so the bulova is owned by Citizen, so they had the next booth over. So it was the director of marketing for Citizen, and so met her, showed her my stuff. She was immediately like, we're doing something. Like, and lots of brands do that or say that, and you hear that a lot, like, "Oh, I'm going to commission a painting, like, I want this." Well, like, 1 out of 50 really does that. But she was, that next week, that later that day, I had an email from her.
Do they ask what it costs?
Later.
Yeah. If they ask what it costs in the beginning, are they more apt, or is it like, which way is it?
I think
better?
they would just want to feel it out, because art's one of those things you don't know. Like, okay, is this
Right.
like, am I paying $500 for this? Am I paying $500,000 for this? It's you want to, like, should this conversation continue anymore?
Yeah.
So, we had a conversation. We talked to that, and they've done a few pieces for me now. At this point.
Did that lead to anything else?
Yes. Working with other brands. I can't talk about, but yeah.
Okay. What's the weirdest brand that you've done a painting for?
The weirdest brand.
Maybe like outside of watch or.
I don't know. It's been like the
How many do you have out there?
watch paintings, a couple dozen.
How many paintings altogether do you think you got out there?
Less than 100. Yeah. I mean, I started doing commission pieces. I was in college still, and doing pieces, and it was a family attorney. They lady that worked for them, and she commissioned 2 paintings. One, her husband was a firefighter and wanted a very abstract picture of the front of his fire truck that he drove. And so I went to the fire department, told the guy that I was like, "Hey, I'm just a photojournalist at the university here, doing a story, and I'd like to take some pictures of your fire truck." So I talked to the guy that was her husband, and because, like, I can't tell him, like, "Hey, I want to take a picture of your truck because I'm doing a painting for you." So yeah, I took a bunch of pictures, got his truck and did the painting of that for him for a Christmas present. And then she wanted a piece. Their house was decorated very like African safari kind of style, lots of like animal heads and rugs and furs and things like that. But it had one of those mantles over the fireplace with the roof was sloping on it, so it was weird angles. But she wanted a piece to go in there, so I went in with ruler and protractor and measured all the angles, and I built custom stretcher bars that fit in that space. It was really just playing around with kind of like what the vibe was, and like that whole that look that she had. So I cut sections of the canvas out and put grommets in it and laced it up so it kind of looked like it was a stretched animal hide
Okay.
around this canvas.
Yeah.
And then did the painting over that.
That's wild. What kind of decoration would you say that my place is?
Someone who is either you were a very old vampire and you've been collecting things for thousands of years or hundreds of years. And also someone who, and I think we've had this conversation, like you have the desire, you want your place to be haunted. So it's collecting things like there's some souls attached to some of that stuff.
I don't know that I want it. It was haunted for a little while. Mm-hmm. That ghost or whatever it was, I think stayed at Carrie's house.
Yeah.
When he took that piece home to have it framed. So, I mean, we could go off on that completely, but I want to stay more on your stuff. What's next?
So still doing, I've got a handful of watch companies that I'm working with, doing collectors. I'm trying to branch out from that as well. I'm doing a golf ball for a company in Texas to get into that world.
Do they make golf balls or they make golf clubs or?
No, it's a company called Random Golf Club, and it's like big social media, YouTube, podcasts. They make merch and products like that, but it's just a very outside the box golf company. It's not focused on your like older white dude. It's bringing a younger crowd. So very fitting to my style with that kind of very abstract style. So that's going to them. Then I've got working with the Field Ethos guys. Gonna do some paintings of firearms for them.
Cool.
And get into that world.
How did that come to be? How did that happen with Field Ethos?
Because they're watch guys as well. So I posted I'd been following them on Instagram, reading their articles, everything with that. Knew they were watch guys, and it was a painting I did for Analog Shift, which is a watch company in New York. Did a gold Submariner for them, and I tagged Field Ethos in it. I was like, hey, it's worth a shot, get it out there. And Jason, the CEO, immediately commented, followed me, let's do something together, like I want to do this. And we chatted for a bit, and we finally got a phone call one night, and we chatted for like almost 3 hours on the phone. And he was like, you need to come to Dallas Safari Club and check this out. Like, I think your stuff would sell there. You've got the guys that are coming in, they're buying $500,000 rifles and big safaris and dropping lots of money.
Yeah.
And so then they got their wife with them who like wants to get a little payback with them. So they have these booths that they're selling like crazy furniture and artwork and all this stuff. So the wives are buying all this thing all as well. And he was like, all these guys that are doing this, like Rolex is their entry level watch. Like that's their beater watch. So that they have money, they like watches that your stuff would sell. And so it was like the following weekend. He's like, you should come out next year. So I go up and get off the phone call and talking with Sarah, and she's like, immediately like pulls out her laptop. She's like, all right, tickets booked. You're go next weekend. Like, go check this out. So I immediately text Jason like, hey, I'll be there. So flew down, hung out with them for the week, and looked at booths at the place, and it's like a 9-year waiting list to get booth space.
Right.
And he's like, well, we'll put paintings in our booth next year. And so just kind of walked around and got a feel for that place and that group. And
Field Ethos hasn't been around 9 years. How did they get a booth faster than 9? It's who you know.
It's who you know. It's yeah. And I think they African Sporting Creations is a company based out of Ohio. So I think they kind of like shared some of their space because they work together. So they were right next to
Is that the same as the Nashville Safari Club show?
Different. That was SCI.
Got it. Okay, so complete different.
Yeah.
So this is like the SHOT Show of super rich guy hunting.
Yeah, and it was massive. It's not SHOT Show massive, but one whole room of the convention center is you're booking safaris, and it's from everywhere from South Africa or South America, Asia, Mongolia, like whatever animal you want to go. There's companies there doing that. There's gear. There's all like the taxidermists, just crazy, amazing taxidermy. Just unreal lifelike stuff. Then you got the furniture and the artworks. Then you go into the whole section that's the firearms sections, and it's not. I mean, definitely not the tactical firearms. It's more like your Holland and Holland over under crazy etched shotguns, and these guys that they make 10 rifles a year.
Jacob kind of stuff.
Yeah,
that's wild.
Yeah, very very cool show.
So you ever do an album cover?
I have not. Talked to a guy about.
Sounds
that
like you might be doing an album cover.
Yeah, I'll do whatever.
That's cool, man. All right. Anything else?
What did you want to be when you were growing up?
An assassin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How'd that work out for you?
I did something else. I might know some. I don't think that I maybe I've met some assassins and I just don't know that they're assassins.
Mm-hmm. They're brown men. They're not gray men.
The brown. I didn't know what she was talking about when she put that up there. Yeah. So how come you never worked with like leather and canvas and?
Oh yeah.
You have a sewing machine?
I don't. Sarah's got a couple, but no, I worked with leather a lot as a kid. Like that. So
aren't you an Eagle Scout?
Yeah. Well, yeah. That was my dad's religion growing up.
Didn't your dad start the Boy Scouts?
He was the founder, yeah.
What's his feeling on Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts being together?
He's definitely more the old school and the scouting thing. He's not involved with it anymore.
But he never sold Girl Scout cookies.
No, he never.
He was never.
He wasn't involved with that. No, we never had any females in our troop. Not that there's nothing wrong with that, but I think there should be at that age, like, have a place where the boys can be boys together and have those experiences. That there would be a different dynamic to it, and not that it's a bad dynamic when you have females involved with it, but there should be something separate that they can go and do. Just
Christian Green's sister, Cinder, has a Girl Scout troop, and they had to fight tooth and nail every time that they wanted to do any crossover. They didn't want to merge with boys. They just wanted to get those badges. Yeah. And they had to fight tooth and nail to have the name Girl Scout attached to bring the troop out to do fighting pistol here, attack response. And Yeager I think he comped that class to them and bought 22 caliber AR-15 style rifles for every girl and they had all those guns there, and those girls came in and they were here for 3 hours probably, and we talked about all kinds of stuff, and it was very cool. It was very cool. But I was privy to the pushback that they got from that.
Oh, totally.
And they weren't even trying to do a co-ed thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still have a patch that I bought from them because they made patches and were selling it to pay for, I think, the ammo for that class. Yeah,
I think they raised the ammunition. They gathered the funds for the ammunition, and James bought the rifles and put the class on for him. Yeah. And it was a full fighting rifle class.
Yeah, back to your question. Yeah, I definitely have done leather work, woodwork, all of that stuff. That was part of growing up. Was I made when I had my plastic 6-shooter cap guns, I made leather holsters and belt for it, and had all access to all of that stuff growing up. There was my grandfather was a big woodworker, had a massive shop, was constantly working on projects and teaching me and working with hand tools and planes from very young age. He's definitely who I got the creative craftsman bug from. Like those like some newspaper printing rolls. Mm-hmm. So they're like 3-4 feet tall. newspaper roll that they would run through, and once it got to the point where they couldn't run any more on it, like it wasn't enough paper on it, they would just scrap the roll and it would just be put in a room, and you could go by the newspaper place and just get these rolls for free. And so we had tons of these sitting around in his shop, and he would sit there and roll it out on the floor. And it would be as long as this room. And that was my project for the day, was fill this with whatever you want. So I would lay down on it. He would trace me, and then I would like draw me, color myself.
How old were you?
That would have been like kinder. I mean, he passed away when I was in 3rd grade, so it was well before that.
And these were coming like from Printers Row?
And yeah, like the newspaper printers.
Where at?
In Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Wow. We were in a building in Printers Row in Nashville.
Oh, Printers Alley?
And it's all been, nothing's left in there.
No, it's all
there.
like
yeah.
bars and honky tonks.
Yeah, we ate at Hemingway's, had breakfast there, and there's a really cool furniture. I'm like, what was this? What was in here? I'm like, oh, wow. And then I was very interested in it. And we actually, a couple blocks down, there was a building that they were unfitting. So we were able to kind of get inside there and walk around a little bit. But those places are gone. They no longer exist. There's nothing left but the stone walls from them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that big equipment is just dead. So drawing, pencil, pen?
It was pencil. He did a lot of drafting. So I have a lot of his old like drafting pencils and supplies and tools and stuff like that. But yeah, it was your standard like crayons and markers and stuff like that. But lots of. I remember him teaching me to sketch, and would sit there with papers and like drawing circles until like you could get it just like a complete, fully rounded circle, and just practicing and trying that, and without using like a compass.
When you painted my painting, you had pointed out a piece of the ink that was in there that you had from. It came from, what was the story with the ink?
So it's Alzarian crimson is a color that is in. I don't do it in all of them now, but it was every painting at that point in time. Like that was my favorite color. It was like it looks the closest to dried blood.
And did you run out of that?
No, I still have it. So it just depends on the color scheme of the painting if I can incorporate that. But usually most every painting would have that in it. And there's also in the frag pattern on the grenade. There's the section that's in the background. You can see it says SOE.
Mm-hmm. That's cool, man. Do you own a panerai?
I do.
How many panerais you got?
I have one.
Why do you only have one panerai?
That was my wedding present watch from Sarah. I don't know. I have one. There's another one they do that's they've gone much smaller. I think part of it's the size with panerai. It's a little. I have little tiny female wrists.
Pierre was here yesterday and had a Rolex on, and it's way too small for him.
It's Submariner.
Whatever this is, this is
Omega.
much better than, this is not better, this is much bigger than the watch Pierre was wearing.
Oh, it's better than his watch too.
I know you're and you're also a Tudor guy over Rolex.
No, I love both. But Tudor is Rolex, but 20% more fun. Like it started by the same guy.
20% less cost, also.
Oh,
way
more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Hans Wilsdorf started both companies. Rolex has been that same. Like they are very conscious of everything that they do. Everything they do as far as marketing, putting things out. They're very safe. And then Tudor has been. That was his idea. Like is the poor man's Rolex that everyone should be able to own. Something like that. So started Tudor, and they've been able to like work with different materials, doing titanium, doing left-hand drive watches, doing just a little bit funkier type thing. So it's Rolex, but fun.
Yeah, we went. I hadn't even heard of Tudor, and then you knew all about them. We were trying to find a Black Shield for sale. It had hit, and it hadn't really even hit the market, but that Israeli chick at the Palazzo had one. Mm-hmm. And when I saw it, it just wasn't as cool as it was in the ad. And then somehow the Breitling Super Avenger came on my radar. Yeah. And then we were actually back at the condo asleep or about to go to sleep when Kane's like, hey, I found that watch. It's over here. And that was like midnight or whatever. We got up and went and bought fucking watches at 1 o'clock in the morning. But that's like, I didn't even know what a Tudor was until the marketing campaign for the Tudor Black Shield. And it was the Black Knight, and he was on the fucking motorcycle, and it was the black and red watch.
Yeah.
So, and then you knew all about him. But back to your panerai. What color band is on your panerai?
man, it changes all the time.
It does.
I have a drawer full of. I mean that's what happens when you get watches, because they get to a certain price point. You're like, I can't buy everything, and it's that way to make a watch just new again is easily throw on like a different NATO or a strap or.
So when I bought my panerai, I bought Jeremy Horton had a Loomtech watch, and I'm like, that's a really neat watch. How much is that? And he's like, $1,300. And I'm like, man, I'll never spend $1,300 for a watch. And then one day he needed something, zippered knife pouch. He's like, I'll trade you this watch. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do that, right? And then it happened again a year or so later. He had bought this panerai, and panerai didn't have a black watch. There was no black panerai, at least that was on my radar. And he had it PVD'd, so it was all taken apart. It was PVD'd, sent the crystal out, had it double reflective coating, sent it somewhere, and they reloomed the dial super bright. And he's like, I need some zippered knife pouches. I will trade you this panerai. And I'm like, how much is it? He's like, or I remember asking him before. I'm like, how much is that watch? He's like, oh man, it was like $4,500. I'm like, you're insane. I'm never buying a 40. And then I ended up with the watch. And every time somebody saw it, like, I will buy that. I'm like, people really want this watch. I should probably never sell this.
Yeah.
And then Greg Chakowski was in town, and he's like, hey, I brought something for you. And we sat down in my office upstairs, and I go in there 2-3 times a year maybe. And he was like, let me see your panerai. And he had a whole watch kit with him, and it had straps and everything in there. And he took the band off of my watch, which I never really liked, and he put on this heavy brown leather band. And I won't ever take that off of there because Greg he put that on there. So that is on there. So, yeah. And I didn't have an appreciation for any of it until years later. And I wear that watch, and every time I wear that watch, I wear that knife that Dwayne Dwyer made that has the deck, the battle. Show me this. This one. You have the same knife.
Yeah, so it's teak from decking from the USS California. So that was sunk at Pearl Harbor, brought back up, recommissioned, fought in World War II. So I don't know if I've told you this story. So you bought me this knife.
Yes.
I mean, obviously you can tell, like I
use it. Yeah.
I use this knife. I carry it. So when we moved to Ohio, this is almost 5 years ago, just putting stuff up in the garage in the attic, and I was on the stairs climbing up putting boxes. Sarah was handing me boxes. The box clipped, the pocket clip on this fell 12 feet or so to the concrete. Immediately, like, my stomach went in my throat, and I was like, oh fuck, because I heard it hit. I saw little pieces go flying in different directions, broke all this wood off.
No shit.
Side. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So I texted Dwayne. I sent him a picture. I was like, I'm distraught. Like, this is, I carry this all the time. It's my favorite thing. Like, do you have any more of this wood? And he's like, I have one section left. And sent it back to him. He put because it was just completely wood, so he put a titanium liner in it on the inside of that wood. So he's like, you won't break that anymore.
That's cool. Yeah. So whenever I put that watch on, I wear that knife, and those go together. And I actually wear that probably when I put on a real watch. That is usually the watch that I put on is the panerai.
Yeah. And Jeff wore that for a while, didn't he?
He might have.
Like
I don't know if you know, I bought grips that we were supposed to have for your wedding.
Yeah.
For 1911s out of that wood. And we don't have them. I was going to put mine on my airsoft gun. I was going to Dremel it, make it fit on that airsoft gun. But yeah, it's cool, man. And Greg knows everything about panerais.
Oh, yeah. So I've been to Chicago and New York with Greg multiple times for watch events. And yeah, he knows everybody at every boutique, knows his way around that city, knows every watch. Yeah, so it's amazing to go there with him. And he's like, you should come down here, and I never have, but I know that. And he's one of those like hype men. Like, he's like, as soon as we go in the place, like, oh, this is Justin. You know, this guy's an artist, and he paints these watches, and
yeah, it'll completely take your life in a different direction. And I'm very focused on here right now, so I'm intentionally not looking at luxury goods. And I see something, if I even see it on Instagram, I just get past it really fast because I know it's going to target
Tempted.
that.
Yeah.
Like when I was talking to the dude inside about Jack Spearcoat, and he's like, I listen for a while and then I come back a year later. I'm like, yeah, I use that when I need to be grounded. When I need to come back to basics, that's what I do. And in the luxury goods, because I'll run 100 miles an hour in those directions. So, but maybe that's not a bad thing, because typically, that's the other thing I wanted to say. When you deal with higher end customers, right, and you are invited into that room, a lot of things happen in your life. And those people at those levels want to see you succeed. They want to introduce you to other people. And before you know it, there's a whole nother door open that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
Have you seen that to be the case?
100%. So the first time I was in New York with Greg, I was sitting in my hotel, and he on Instagram, he was like, in his stories, like he was landing at LaGuardia and was like, "Hey, I'm here for the day." So I immediately texted him. I was like, "Cause we had never met before." And we texted you a photo of the two of us together.
Yeah, I get photos of him and Robert together all the time.
Yeah. So I texted him, I was like, "Hey, dude, I'm in New York as well. Like, what's going on? Let's meet up." And
yeah, he's like, "Hey, is Justin a weirdo, or do you really know this guy?"
Yeah. And yeah, so we met up, went to a couple boutiques, introduced me to some people, and he's like, "Hey, I'm getting ready to go have lunch with James Lambden, who owns this company, Analog Shift, in New York." It's a very, very prominent vintage watch dealer. And he's like, which I'd followed him for years and knew who he was.
Wow.
And he's like, "I'm getting ready to go have lunch with him. You want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do this." And so immediately went and ended up, Lambden and I did most of the, like, chatting and talking, and we've become very good friends. He has painting, and immediately he was like, what can we do? Like, let's work on something together. I like your style, I like you, like, let's do this. And that never would have happened if
Chance saw it on Instagram.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, like, you have to take those opportunities. It's just saying yes repeatedly to whatever.
The answer's always yes.
The answer's always yes. Do you want to go do this? You want to go meet this person? Yes.
That's awesome.
Let's do it. You don't know what's going to happen from it.
Did you hear the podcast? Greg was on a podcast and he sent me a link to it. It was a watch podcast that he was on, or a video, or...
He's been on a few. So he was on Rico's watch podcast. That was the one I was on recently.
So I didn't know that. Okay.
But I bet what he sent you was this guy named Waco, very big into the watch world, Revolution watch magazine.
That watch magazine, that's it.
Yeah, and the Rake magazine. He's the founder of both of those. And so when Way found out about Greg's story, and then what the Paneristi crowd did for
Greg the one. That's the one. Yep.
Brought him on and interviewed him for that.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I met Greg just by chance. We were having some shitty little party because we didn't go to SHOT Show. We just had like an after party instead. And Jaeger had the Bloodhound Gang. He's like, "We need some music." And I had a Bloodhound Gang CD, so he had that playing over and over in circles. And he introduced me to this guy Greg, and he's like, "This is my friend Greg. This is who he's with." And Greg had some interest in a shotgun rig, and James is like, "Give him this rig." I'm like, "Absolutely." And Greg just had an energy about him. Every time I am around Greg, I'm like, I need to be around that dude more. I am fucking tired, and I move pretty fucking quick, and I am tired when I am around Greg because I have to just be at that energy level with Greg.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So that first time I met him and we're walking around the city, that was in the spring. I had my ankle surgery that fall previously. Non-weight bearing 3 months, right.
Rehab. I guess we're about to test this.
Greg walks through New York City like a New Yorker. Like, he is on a mission and going. I'm like, all right, I'm queuing up, and yeah,
King of New York. Yeah.
No, definitely. Yeah, good dude.
Well, that's cool, man. We'll cut this one off, and we'll do another one soon.
Yeah.
I kind of think we should probably get together and have some kind of, I don't know, maybe we video it or remotely or whatever, so we can get people together and just share ideas more frequently.
Definitely.
And spin this off into something else with just different ideas, different people and different just opinions, get more eyeballs on the same topic, because I think we can do a lot more, having different sets of and different perspectives on things. I don't know what that'll be, but we need to do something with it because we're not together enough.
No. And that for years we were together like every Saturday. Like I changed my schedule around at REI so I could be off when you guys came into town. And for years we did that. Like we went ate lunch, went ate dinner together.
It's important. Like there's a very small group of people, right? We wouldn't ever tell people when we were coming into town because people wanted to be where we were or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you just never knew it. I want to develop better relationships, not more relationships.
Totally.
So it was like there's a very finite amount of people when I come into town. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And Pierre knows when I hit him with that, he knows we're there or on the way in. Mm-hmm. And whatever that schedule is, I just need to maneuver my day around so that I can be there so that we can meet up for a few minutes someplace. Mm-hmm. And it just, I want to add value, right? I don't want to just meet people to shake hands and shit. I want somebody to walk away from something. Everybody's contagious, and I want them to walk away better in some manner. And it works both ways. And you have always added value and made me a better person from any interactions that we've had. I always have felt that way.
I appreciate that, and it's 100% reciprocal. Like it's yeah. I mean, I've told you that Sarah's my wife, by the way, has specific instructions. If anything ever happens to me, John is the first person you call.
I hope I never get that call.
Yeah.
Is it true you weren't going to marry her if we didn't like her?
Oh yeah.
She almost lost it with the purple jacket. Yeah, first when you're like, hey, I'm bringing somebody I want you to meet to. Mm-hmm. We went to Virago.
She was so nervous.
Really?
I told her
I
that
never
too.
got nervous from her. Never did I get nervous from her.
No, it took years. Like she was intimidated by you and Amanda. As far as like, she's like, these people are important in Justin's life. I need to like meet them, make a good impression. And then also there's this thing of like not knowing how to take sense of humor and stuff like that. And then once she realized like she could bullshit with you, and then it was like, all right, it's on.
She's one of the few people I ever made anything purple for. Like, we're not making any fucking purple stuff.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Leave some comments. Where can they find you?
Instagram's the best. Justin Sowders art on Instagram is the best place.
I don't do social media. You're on social media right now if you're watching this.
Yeah.